There is some breaking news, though, and this is some outstanding news for the people in Bolivia. Jose, you got a story for the people. What is going on in Bolivia, of all places?
Bolivia, I mean, we could pull up this Guardian article. I expect Western media to be a little salty about these turn of events. They're already calling. The official polls are not out, but exit polls for the presidential elections in Bolivia are showing that the MAS party, Movimiento al Socialismo, which is the movement towards socialism party, is set to win the presidency and the Congress in the first round of voting. They have ranked choice voting.
I could see all the people in Washington D.C. just being like,
Or is that like, we wasted all that money for that coup?
But that's exactly it. Which is another reason I feel Trump is destined to lose. He's just not doing American imperialism right. The CIA doing a socially engineered coup in Latin America, I mean, that's bread and butter stuff. And they totally got egg on their face about this. Before I go on, I do want to say, I have voted already. I voted. I wrote in Mark Charles, as I said I would.
Nice.
I don't know whether Trump or Biden are going to win. I think it speaks to America's character. Whatever does happen, not that one is better than the other, but I will be writing some blog stuff later to better explain that. But the people of Bolivia fought hard for the democracy, and it wasn't just voting, which is one of the spins that we see liberals try to do. They had to fight since the coup, happened. There was protests on the street. There was blocking of roads and trains and general strikes in different areas. There was right-wing terror attacks and many deaths. Many people died under this transitional coup regime. With their overwhelming vote, they demonstrated the legitimacy of their demands. That's what makes democracy so hard to work fighting for. So I do encourage people to go out and vote. Let's get to the meat of the story. Evo Morales' left-wing party is celebrating a stunning political comeback after its candidates appeared to trounce rivals in Bolivia's presidential elections. The official results of Sunday's twice postponed election had yet to be announced on Monday afternoon, but exit polls projected that Luis Arce, the candidate for Morales' Movimiento al Socialismo, MAS, has secured more than 50% of the vote, while his closest rival, the centrist former president Carlos Mesa, received about 30% of the vote. Mesa conceded defeat on Monday lunchtime, telling supporters that a quick count showed a very convincing, very clear result. There is a large gap between the first place candidate and us, and as believers in democracy, it now falls on us to recognize there is a winner in this election, Mesa said. Arce, former finance minister under Morales, had earlier claimed victory in a late-night broadcast from La Paz. We have reclaimed democracy, and above all, we have reclaimed hope, said the 57-year-old UK-educated economist who is widely known as Lucho. Arce vowed to end the uncertainty that has plagued his bitterly divided nation since October 2019, when hotly disputed claims of vote rigging against his party resulted in mass street protests, the presidential election being scrapped and Morales being forced from the country by security forces and what his supporters call a racist right-wing coup. We will govern for all Bolivians. We will bring unity to our country, said Arce, who should be sworn in as president in the first half of November. Fireworks echoed around La Paz as news for the forecast victory spread, although a MAS spokesman called for Arce supporters to await the official results. We know there are high expectations, but we must comply with the rules in order to have a good celebration, said Marianela Paco. Morales, who has towered over the election rerun despite living in exile in Argentina, hailed a resounding victory for his party. Sisters and brothers, the will of all of the people has prevailed, tweeted the Bolivia's first indigenous president, a key member of Latin America's key left-wing pink tide, who governed from 2006 until his dramatic downfall last year. Ouster. Even Morales' nemesis, the right-wing interim president Janine Áñez, conceded that the left had come out on top. We do not have yet the official count. Yada, 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 yada. One of the things that's so important about this, the official count is not set to be released until Wednesday. This was shared with everybody last week, kind of last minute. MAS has a very robust, their own exit poll operation. Out of their exit poll operation is where this early declaration of victory is coming from. And it is so robust that, I mean, even the opposition has to concede to the work that they've done. So this is, proof that organizing, people power can truly trounce imperialism and even the spookiest of CIA operations. In some ways, though, it should be said that the coup government did achieve some of their end goals and taking high interest loans from the IMF, something that Evo Morales was able to avoid altogether, was able to avoid for the most part, except for one of the leading candidates, the second place candidate, did make a move within Bolivian politics to take IMF loans in the early 2010s. Overall, the takeaway of this has to be how hard it is to actually have a robust democracy, but that it's also possible. I think that it's not an accident that Morales named his party El Movimiento al Socialismo, the movement towards socialism. The action of moving towards something is very important in the ethos of the party. You can be anywhere politically, but the movement towards complete and total equity within Bolivia with the use of their natural resources is something that is still extremely popular, obviously, in the country, even if Morales himself, after 14 years of towering over the country's politics, perhaps was a little popular enough to be ousted. His party, his politics, and the character that he's given Bolivia has prevailed and seems much more robust and resilient, regardless of what happens in the U.S. elections.
Right.
So
go ahead,
I'm very happy. I remember, it's crazy. This is such a recent coup that happened, and it's like the one I reference, like when I talk to people, I'm like, we don't coup anymore. I'm like, yeah, Bolivia, look at that right there. It's interesting. This is like a year. The country seems to be returning to where it started. I didn't realize that they had taken out all those high interest loans. I feel like Bolivia is now a college student that got some really bad advice. I guess depending on where you're looking at that from, but. That would be quite something to get, and this would, again, to your point earlier, show how bad Trump is at what he's doing at U.S. imperialism. He took over, installed a Christian fascist group that had a 4% support rate, called it democracy, and in basically under a year, it's reverting back to where it came from. And the fact that these I lost my train of thought. Okay, but that these exit polls are so strong that the centrist candidate is dropping out, which, if by your own numbers, that's over 80% of the vote. I would really like to see that remaining 20%. I don't know how are they going to try and make it sound like this math checks out? Like, can they? I've been saying in the U.S. a long time that they can maybe pull a 5% shift in voting before it gets super noticeable. Is that going to be the case in Bolivia? But I think that actually taking advantage of this and not doing this party, throwing the fireworks, everyone saying the next leading person dropping out, if they try to pull any shenanigans, then it's 80% against 20%. And I think that's a good scenario to be in. I just want to say to Bolivia, good luck. You guys were doing well, and then America's like, we'd like that lithium, and then everything happened because they wouldn't give us a good price. So let's see what happens now.
I have a very interesting perspective on this because when we were talking about this story way early on, no one was really addressing it.
Yeah.
No one was talking about it. Nothing but hush, silence.
We were even told that
media.
the story was fake, that we were covering, that this didn't actually even happen.
Right, but here's the thing that we have to remember, that is that in just 1 year, there's been a complete shift in the potential leadership of the country of Bolivia, where originally there was, Evo Morales who was in charge, and then
who was doing a very good job by all accounts.
Then he was removed by the United States after they failed in Venezuela. And now, through the electoral process, we're seeing a socialist leader replace the right-wing American-backed president. So, in other words, everything has been changed, and it's if there is to be any kind of election, lack of election integrity there. I mean, the people of Bolivia have to be, very vigilant, because now more than ever, I say good luck, because the United States will not turn a blind eye to this. I mean, there's a lot of groups that really invested a lot into the Bolivia coup, and now in just 1 year, any gains that they have made have disappeared. I'm not saying it's completely falling apart, but real quick, FaZe, I'm actually going to send you a tweet on Slack, so I would like you to pull it up because I want to read this message, because there was one presidential candidate that was addressing this coup, and only later on did a few others speak out. But I want to give, this just in 1 year, a lot's changed. And this tweet came out in November, which is when the coup happened.
Bernie talked about it. I know Tulsi talked about it.
Yeah, and I actually want to bring up, this is a tweet from Tulsi Gabbard, so let's go ahead and pull that tweet out. And she was running a campaign against regime change wars. What happened in Bolivia is a coup, period. The United States and other countries should not be interfering in the Bolivian people's pursuit of self-determination and right to choose their own government. And the thing is that we've been doing this for a very long time here in the United States, and very few people were stepping up and addressing this issue or even calling it out for what it is. And now going forward, I just have to say this, good luck, Bolivia, and to everyone else. Right now, we have to make sure that our democracies are protected, because at any point right now, corporations and those people with dark money can influence how elections turn out. And now more than ever, every one of us has to step up and fight for our rights. This isn't just an American issue or Bolivian. This is an international issue, so that we can preserve democracy, because this is a very important fundamental system that we have created. And if we just allow it to be corrupted or continue, or have the corruption continue, any notion or an idea of a government by and for the people, for anyone across the world, will disappear. And I think we have to preserve our democracies, and we have to speak out, which is why we need to have a free press, which is why we need to get money out of politics, and which is why all of us in our own way have to help build a better future.
And just really quick, sorry, Jose. Really quick, it's just so interesting. It makes you think. Trump's, again, I think you make the greatest point in this. Trump's not good at maintaining imperialism. So what does it say that we're in an era where imperialism is not maintained that much or that effectively, and a country overtaken reverts back in less than a year? What does that say about all the times it's been maintained for years?
Mm-hmm. Jose, we'll give you the final word.
Three presidential candidates that speak out about the situation. Bernie Sanders was the first. He was caught on a live town hall by Jorge Ramos, who really pushed back against the characterization of calling it a coup. Bernie insisted that it was a coup. Live on air. Tulsi Gabbard, as you read, and Marianne Williamson, who blocked me on Twitter, sad, also spoke out about this. And it has to be said that one of the reasons this was, this pushback, this story was even possible, was because of the little bit of international attention that it did get. I mean, U.S. media certainly didn't want it. And I haven't forgotten that Elizabeth Warren herself framed Morales and his party, in the terrible light that U.S. media wanted to frame it in to legitimize the coup. But Progressive International, which I think has gotten some heat for its connections to Naomi Klein and whether she's connected to the CIA or something, but all the same, it was international support and observers that made it so that the coup government had to respect what exit polls and what numbers and what infrastructure, what organizing was out there. A congressional delegation from Argentina was arrested on Friday before the Sunday elections for trying to observe the elections, and through the brouhaha open the floodgates for a lot more international observers. That's unfortunately the tools that we need for democracy to prevail, and for an international system of solidarity can take place. Now, some people decry that as a world government. I mean, look at our government. How coherent and how valuable is government? It's a mess, but if there's some kind of streamlined system for us to advocate for one another, we have to make sure it plays into the people's favor and not the other way around. That's what democracy is about. That's why I still consider myself a democratic socialist in the big sense of the word. But I also wanted to point out that the right wing did work hard to demoralize the left wing. Right wing coups and thugs were going and flooding the streets and vandalizing, left wing towns and brutalizing left wing supporters and burning indigenous flags that became prominent under Morales. I just want to give a shout out to Patricia Arce Guzman, who was a mayor of a town that her office was ransacked by right-wing thugs. She was dragged into the street and beaten and covered in red paint and her hair chopped off and covered in red paint for communism. She became a senator in Sunday's election.
Wow.
So, the left wing of Bolivia definitely, were outgunned and outflanked and had international support turned against them. It was from their own organizing they were able to turn this around. I have hopes that we can match that energy here in America for this next decade. Again, just encouraging people. This is why democracy matters. It's a way for us to change our physical reality.
So I would just say that this, we've talked a little bit about this with organizing groups. This is the kind of resiliency that I think every single organization on the left needs to have. They need to be ready to have their leadership decapitated and then immediately spring back into action, just like Bolivia is. When you have that body, it can regrow ahead. Yeah. And it's right now because we know that the CIA is going to plant someone, local government's going to plant someone. Like they're going to try and the leadership, we're going to take them out, and then they're going to fall apart. And that's exactly what Chicago did to the gangs, and they cut all their leadership off at once, which is why a large component of why we have so much violence right now is an aftermath of that action because they couldn't reform. So everyone take a message from Bolivia, have your own, if you're large enough, if you're like a DSA-sized group or a Now Revolution-sized group, you better have plans for any amount of...
Same thing for Moving for People's Party, too. Have plans and extra plans and backups for backups. But